The West is demonstrating to Putin in every possible way that it also knows how to play the game quietly, systematically tightening the screws of diplomacy and tightening the sanctions noose. And now Putin will have to go to China to personally ask Comrade Xi to ease the loop of sanctions, because of which payments to schemers have stopped going through. Scholz and Blinken have already visited Beijing in the past month. Each of them clearly explained to the little panda that it was better not to joke with her shaky economic health. A sanction stroke might suffice. And Macron is also going to come with the latest analyses, which do not rule out the introduction of Allied units into the territory of Ukraine. But the rat is inquisitive, and continues to lather its skis towards the Celestial Empire. After all, Beijing's help is critically important. Useful sanctions cut off financial flows, and war requires money every day. Even the disgraced Shoigu opened her mouth and demanded that weapons be supplied, otherwise the offensive might bog down. And this comes as Russia's Gazprom announces a net loss of $6.08 billion for 2023. Considering that it previously made a profit of $14 billion, the fascist killing machine did not receive an additional $20 billion, a huge amount of money. The Austrian schemers, who are financially stuck in the cave, are also being put under pressure. Raiffeisenbank announced that in the third quarter it will curtail its activities in Russia. Greedy businessmen will try to grab as much as possible from the sale of the asset, resisting the no less greedy mob. And this is another sign that remaining in a fascist enclave is becoming a sign of bad taste. Today it seems that the meat offensive of the racists is about to collapse the front of the Ukrainian armed forces, which are holding on to the limit. GOR General Skibitsky admits, Ukraine is on the brink. It's harder now than ever. The shortage of weapons is taking its toll. The Russian offensive will begin in late May, early June. Now the Russian army operates as a single body, with a clear plan and under a single command. End of quote. Meanwhile, the story of the arrest of Deputy Shoigu will most likely develop in the form of a replacement of the Minister of Defense in the Kremlin. Putin met with Alexei Diamond, his former security guard, who, by the way, at one time served as Deputy Minister of Defense, and now heads the Tula region. By the way, Diamond once supported Prigozhin, so the rat can entrust him with the place of the disgraced Shoigu, after which he can clean out all the old generals and revive the fronts in all directions. According to the commander of the ground forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine Pavlyuk, Putin has a plan to capture Kharkov and Sumy, and already in 2024 he plans to completely occupy the Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk and Lugansk regions. The Kremlin is not going to lose. Its tentacles continue to, slowly, spread throughout the world. Rashists became more active in Africa, entering the American military base in Niger. American troops also left Chad, and French troops were expelled from Mali and Burkina Faso. But a holy place is never empty. Demons live there. And now the Kremlin is filling the void, presenting itself as a white friend without a colonial background on the continent. And China, which is striving to occupy its niche in resource-rich Africa, hardly likes this. But this does not mean that all the Kremlin's wishes will necessarily come true. After the United States allowed its long-range missiles to be fired at Crimea, Britain went even further and officially gave permission to fire its weapons into Russian territory. With a caveat, within the framework of self-defense. Ukraine has the right to do this, British Foreign Minister Cameron said during a visit to Kyiv. With Russia targeting Ukraine, it's understandable why Ukraine would feel the need to make sure it can defend itself. So, Bryansk, Oryol, Kursk, Voronezh and Belgorod can prepare for the return of the prayed-for war, which is knocking so hard that it is impossible not to let in. In Crimea this knock is already felt. This is the process of zeroing the radar systems and air defense systems of the Russians. Next up is the splashdown of the Crimean Bridge, the loss of which will become a landmark in this war. But not fatal for the Kremlin, because the bald man does not believe in the possibility of defeat. He is ready to fight at least until 1930, exhausting the West and proving to it that Ukraine is not worth getting involved with. But his cave is weaker than the USSR, and the decision to gradually liquidate it has already been made by the West. It remains to finalize it in Beijing, which historically has always been volatile, meandering from the adventures of Mao with his Red Guards to the revivalist ideas of Deng Xiaoping. The Far East and Eastern Siberia are already being filled with Chinese also little by little, and soon lo and behold the entire east of the cave will speak Chinese. Putin's Russian world, with Duggan's revelations to media provocateur Carlson, is the last attempt of a dead empire to get out, clinging to the edge of the crypt in which history itself places it.